And chosen one, you've always known. Long before the words found you, long before the world tried to define you, there was a whisper, soft, subtle, sacred, a knowing too deep for explanation, too ancient for logic, too real to be ignored. That whisper wasn't imagination. It was remembrance. You didn't arrive here by chance. You didn't stumble into this body, into this name, into this lifetime. You were placed. Precisely, intentionally, lovingly. And though the world wrapped you in noise, though it fed you confusion, expectation, distraction, still the whisper never left. It hummed beneath the surface of every moment. It echoed when the room grew quiet. It stirred in your chest when you stared at the stars and felt something calling you home. You know what I mean, because that call isn't new. It didn't begin today or yesterday. It's as old as your soul, and you've carried it across lifetimes, across timelines, through fires, through floods, through moments that would have shattered others. You felt everything more deeply, not because you were weak, but because you were wired differently. You were built to sense what others overlook, to feel beyond the surface, to see through the illusion, to remember what most have forgotten. And now the remembering has begun again. That's why you're here. That's why your heart beat faster when you heard certain words. Why certain songs made you cry. Why certain moments felt like déjà vu. This isn't coincidence. This is activation. Because you, chosen one, were never ordinary. And I don't say that to flatter your ego. This is not about hierarchy. This is about purpose. Your soul agreed, before the veil, before the forgetting, before the assignment, to walk this earth with codes the world would not immediately recognize. You knew it would be hard. You knew you'd feel alone. You knew people would misunderstand you, reject you, try to mold you. And still, you said yes, because that's what chosen ones do. They carry what cannot be seen. They hold what cannot be explained. They endure what others avoid, not because they are better, but because they are willing. And you have always been willing. Even in your silence, even in your confusion, even in your pain, the whisper persisted, and now it's no longer a whisper. It's a summons, a gentle roar rising from within, a pull you can't ignore, a pressure that isn't crushing you but calling you forward. You are not just waking up, you are remembering. And what you remember now is this: you never fit because you weren't made to fit. You were made to shift, to disrupt the false, to dissolve the illusions, to anchor a truth that has waited eons to be lived through you. The systems you couldn't stand, they were never meant to contain your light. The roles you outgrew, they were training grounds. The pain you survived, it was sacred fire. And from that fire, you didn't just survive, you became. Have you ever felt like you were placed here, not born, but assigned? If these words didn't just speak to you, but awakened something inside you, it means the remembering has already begun. Don't walk away quietly. Leave a comment below that says, "I accept my placement," and let that be your declaration. And if this message mirrored something sacred you thought only you felt, subscribe now. Not out of curiosity, but out of calling. Because what's coming next isn't entertainment, it's alignment. Stay connected, stay activated, stay ready. Your remembering didn't start here, but it can deepen here. And the world needs you awake, not just aware. You became the one others feel before they see. The one who brings stillness without speaking. The one who senses what's off without explanation. The one who walks into a room and rewrites the atmosphere with presence alone. You've been this all along, but now you're being asked to remember it on purpose. Not just in quiet moments, not just when it's convenient, but fully, boldly, unapologetically, because the time of hiding is over. You were not meant to live beneath your potential. You were not designed to dim your insight to match comfort. You were not placed here to pretend you're ordinary just to make others feel safe. You were placed here as a living key to unlock, to activate, to ignite. And yes, you'll be misunderstood. Yes, you'll feel resistance. Yes, you'll be tempted to shrink. But remember this. The resistance is not a sign you're wrong. It's proof you're real. The opposition is not failure, it's friction, the kind that sharpens the blade, strengthens the root, awakens the code. You have walked through nights that begged you to forget who you were, but you didn't. Not fully. Something always stayed lit. A flicker, a breath, a thread of knowing that never snapped even when everything else fell apart, and that chosen one is what makes you different. Not what you've gained, not what you've built, not what the world applauds, but the unshakable core inside you. The part that wouldn't die even when everything else did. The voice that kept whispering, there's more. More than this job, more than this pain, more than this role you've been playing, and you were right. There is more, and it's inside you, not in a distant future, not behind someone else's blessing, but here, now, awakening cell by cell, breath by breath, step by sacred step. So let this moment be your permission. Let this message be your mirror. Let these words echo what your soul already knows. You were made for this, and you're not alone. There are others like you, quiet revolutionaries, silent carriers of truth, scattered across the globe, but woven together in spirit. And now, one by one, they are remembering too. One by one, they are rising, not with force, but with frequency. And your remembering is part of that rising. This is only the beginning, but it is the most important part, because once you remember, everything changes. You've been told you were too deep, too quiet, too intense, too different, but what they saw as too much was heaven's signature on your soul. Chosen one, you were never meant to be digestible. You were meant to be divine. Even before you understood your own silence, the universe recognized your frequency. That's why you never fit in, because you weren't sent to fit. You were sent to fracture illusions. Your essence carries keys to hearts, to generations, to futures not yet awakened, and because of that you've been watched. Not always by people, but by realms unseen. Angels whispered over your name before you even spoke your first word. They said, "This one will not follow." They will lead, but not loudly, not in pride. They will lead by simply being. And that is what you've done, even in your unawareness. You've walked into rooms and changed the temperature. You've breathed and shifted outcomes. You've wept and watered dry places. You weren't ordinary, you were activated. And yes, there were times when even you forgot who you were, forgot why the road was harder, forgot why the ache never left. But now, the ache is revealing itself as a call to remember, to return, to reclaim. This is not about becoming something new, it's about becoming what you've always been, without shame, without hesitation, without asking permission. You don't need another sign. You are the sign. You are the signal. You are the sound of heaven moving through flesh. And the world has no choice but to respond. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be obeyed by all things aligned with light. So stand not in arrogance, but in remembrance. You've been hidden long enough. Now let your presence speak. Let your stillness thunder, let your breath create, because chosen one, the time of being almost is over. You are, and that is enough to shift everything. Chosen one, there's something you've always carried quietly, behind your smile, beneath your strength, in the hidden places even you sometimes try not to look. It's the weight of pain that never quite made sense. Not just heartbreak, not just loss, but a deeper ache, one that lived in your bones before anyone gave you a reason to hurt. You've asked it more times than you can count. Why me? Why so heavy? Why did it have to be this hard? And now, here comes the truth your soul has always known. Your pain was never random. It wasn't a punishment. It wasn't karma. It wasn't chaos. It was preparation. Because what you carry now, that compassion, that insight, that frequency, could only be born through fire. You were never sent here to bypass suffering. You were sent here to transcend it, to walk through it, to rise with something in your hands that could only be forged in the dark. You see, chosen one, your soul didn't choose the easy road. It chose the real one, the one that would break every illusion you inherited, the one that would burn away the masks, the one that would make you unshakable, not because you never fell, but because you got up with something sacred in your eyes. And that something, it's what makes you undeniably you. People have seen it, even when they didn't have words for it. Even when they didn't know how to hold it, they felt it, that light, that silence, that storm you carry like it was stitched into your skin. But what they didn't see was what it cost you. The nights you wept on floors no one knew you laid on. The moments you begged the sky for an answer, any answer. The hours you spent unraveling the wounds you didn't ask for, but still chose to heal. Because that's who you are. The healer. The alchemist. The one who said no more to cycles that lived in your bloodline for generations. You broke patterns without applause. You healed people without recognition. You chose softness in a world that demanded hardness. And all of that, it came through the pain. Pain was the doorway. Pain was the teacher. Pain was the sacred forge where your calling was refined, not shaped to destroy you, but to reveal you. You see, there's something holy about suffering that doesn't shatter your spirit. It sharpens it. It awakens it. It teaches you to listen in places most people never enter. That's why you can walk into a room and feel the tension before words are spoken. That's why you can sit beside someone and just know what they're carrying. That's why your eyes hold stories you've never told out loud, because you earned them, not through ease, but through endurance. You survived what was meant to silence you, and in doing so, you uncovered a voice more real than anything the world could fabricate. But still you question. You wonder if it was worth it. You wonder if the pain meant anything. Let me say this clearly. Every single moment of it mattered. The heartbreaks, they opened your heart wider. The betrayals, they taught you to trust your discernment. The losses, they taught you to hold the sacred loosely. The loneliness, it carved out a chamber for divine presence to dwell. None of it was wasted. The tears watered something, the silence birthed something, the ache shaped something, and that something is you, fully awake, fully aware, and fully becoming. This is what the chosen ones understand. We are not defined by what happened to us. We are defined by what awakened through us. Your scars are not shame. They are seals. Proof that you made it through fire and didn't become bitter. Proof that you touched the bottom and still chose to rise. And that rise, it changes things, not just for you, but for everyone you meet, because pain, when transmuted, becomes medicine. And you, chosen one, are a walking vessel of that medicine. That's why others are drawn to you, why they open up without knowing why. Why your words stick in their chest long after you've left the room, because your energy carries proof that healing is possible, that transformation is real, that pain doesn't have to be permanent. But none of this came easy. You bled for this light. You wept for this clarity. You shattered for this wisdom, and still you chose to carry it, not as a weapon, but as a gift, to offer, to serve, to remind. You are not just here to be free. You are here to help others remember that they were never trapped. But to do that, you had to know the prison. You had to taste the walls. You had to live in the silence long enough to recognize truth by feel alone. And now you're beginning to understand. The pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to deliver you. Into purpose, into clarity, into embodiment. You're not guessing anymore, you're remembering. And the more you remember, the less you resent the journey. You stop asking, why me? And you start whispering, thank you, not because it was easy, but because it was exact. your life, your path, your pain, all designed to carve you into the shape of someone who could carry what this world needs most. Light, but not the flashy kind, not the loud kind, not the kind that performs, the kind that radiates. Quietly, constantly, unshakably, that is what you've become because of the pain. So no, your pain was never random. It was the roadmap, the activation, the anointing. And now you carry something no one can take from you. You've earned it, you've embodied it, and you're ready. Chosen one. Have you ever been told you're too sensitive, that you overthink too much, that you feel too deeply, that you carry things no one else seems to notice? And maybe you believed them. Maybe you tried to numb it. Maybe you learned how to hide it. Maybe you began apologizing for emotions that didn't fit into the world's definition of strength. But what if they were wrong? What if your sensitivity was never a flaw? What if it was your superpower? You see, this world taught you to see emotion as weakness, to be logical, not intuitive, to be composed, not compassionate, to be detached, not discerning, but you were never built for numbness. You were built for depth. You feel the undercurrents in every room. You hear what people don't say. You can look at someone's eyes and read the pain they never speak. And that is not ordinary. That's sacred sight. You were given a different kind of radar, not to burden you, but to prepare you, because the path you walk requires precision, the kind of precision only the sensitive can carry. You are here to shift energies, to heal vibrations, to restore frequencies that have long been distorted. And to do that, you must be able to feel them. That's why you were born with this sensitivity, not to suffer, but to sense, to detect, to discern. Even as a child, you felt what others dismissed. You absorbed atmospheres. You internalized energy. You picked up emotions that weren't yours and didn't know how to set them down, because no one taught you that what you carried wasn't weight, it was wisdom. The world doesn't honor sensitivity. It celebrates stoicism. It promotes emotional detachment. But chosen ones, they're made of something softer. And in that softness is immense strength, because it takes courage to feel everything and still remain open. It takes wisdom to allow emotion to move through you without letting it consume you. It takes power to stay soft in a world that punishes gentleness. You've cried when others laughed. You've paused when others rushed. You've broken when others stayed numb. And yet you've risen again and again. That's what they didn't see. That your softness wasn't weakness. It was a sacred structure, strong enough to bend without breaking. You've been gifted with the ability to feel the unseen. And while that makes life heavier sometimes, it also makes your presence transformational. You don't even need to speak. People feel better just by being near you, calmer, heard, seen, and they don't know why. But you do, because what they're feeling is your frequency. The echo of all the pain you turned into presence. The evidence of all the emotion you transmuted into empathy. The resonance of someone who has learned to sit with everything and still remain. So no, you're not too much. You are exactly enough. You are made for this. Your heart was never broken. It was broken open so it could hold more light, so it could hold more people, so it could hold more of the divine. And I know it gets overwhelming. You feel so much, so fast, so deeply. And it's not easy to carry all that weight without wondering if something's wrong with you. But let me say this clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. In fact, what's right with you is what the world desperately needs more of. More feeling, more truth, more souls who won't run from depth. You see, your emotional sensitivity is your spiritual instrument. It's how you navigate timelines. It's how you detect truth in a sea of deception. It's how you know who's real, even before they speak. You've been using it all your life, whether you knew it or not. That moment you pulled away from someone without knowing why, that job you couldn't stay in, even though it made sense on paper. That conversation that gave you chills for no logical reason, that wasn't anxiety. That was your gift in motion, your inner compass, the alignment detector that senses what the mind hasn't caught up to yet. And yes, that can make relationships hard. It can make you feel alien in rooms where no one else notices what you do. It can make the world feel loud, chaotic, overwhelming. But you weren't made to drown in it. You were made to discern it, to cleanse it, to shift it, because your presence is not passive. It is active medicine, and sensitivity is your healing instrument. You were born with it because your assignment requires it. You were never meant to desensitize. You were meant to remain soft and strong, to feel and stand, to carry light into dark spaces without letting the darkness carry into you. And that takes training. That's why life gave you so many lessons. That's why you felt everything so intensely. That's why you had to learn boundaries the hard way, so that your gift wouldn't destroy you, so that you could finally learn what you feel is not yours to hold forever. It is yours to process, to transmute, to bless, then release. Because the more you carry your sensitivity with sacred awareness, the more you stop drowning in emotion and start channeling it into art, into presence, into healing, into truth. Your tears become rivers for others to remember who they are. Your intuition becomes the light others follow when they are lost. Your softness becomes the space where others finally feel safe to break. That is power. That is your gift. And the more you honor it, the more it grows. You start to trust yourself again. You stop asking if you're too much. You start asking, how much more can I become if I stop apologizing? Because the world doesn't need another mask. It needs you in full. Not the filtered you, not the hardened you, not the silenced you, but the sensitive, intuitive, soul-deep you, the one who feels, the one who knows, the one who doesn't need proof to believe in vibration, the one who remembers what others forgot. You are the one, and your sensitivity is the sign, not of fragility, but of frequency. So carry it boldly, feel it fully, and never again believe that what makes you feel deeply is what makes you weak. It's what makes you chosen. Chosen one. There is a reason why loud spaces drain you, why small talk exhausts you, why the suffering of others sits in your chest like a stone. You were born with a deeper antenna, one that doesn't just hear noise, but feels it. You were never weak for being overwhelmed. You were simply built to register what others ignore. And that is not a curse, it is a calling. You sense when something is off. Not because you're anxious, but because your spirit is tuned to frequencies others can't hear. You feel what's not being said, not because you imagine it, but because your heart is fluent in silence. And yes, it's heavy. It's heavy to be the one who sees before anyone admits, to carry the ache that others hide, to feel the pain that hasn't even reached the surface yet. But this burden was never punishment. It was placement. You were placed as a healer, not the kind who always has the words, but the kind whose presence alone creates shift. And sometimes, just by sitting with someone in their pain, without fixing it, without labeling it, you remind them, you are not alone. That reminder is sacred. It doesn't come from books, it doesn't come from logic, it comes from your design. You were built to feel deeply so others could feel at all. And I know there were days you wished to feel nothing, days when your sensitivity felt like drowning, days when you shut down just to survive. But chosen one, you didn't drown. You descended into the waters of compassion where only the brave dare swim. And now you rise, not harder, not colder, but stronger in softness. Because true strength isn't about shutting out. It's about staying open even when it hurts. That's what you've done. You've stayed open even after heartbreak, even after betrayal, even after being told again and again that you were too much. But let me say this clearly, you were never too much. They were simply not enough to receive the full spectrum of your light. And now, your light is sharpening. You're learning the difference between carrying and connecting, between sensing and absorbing, between compassion and depletion. You're learning to hold space without losing yourself in it. Because your gift isn't just to feel, it's to feel wisely, to direct your sensitivity like a river, not a flood, to become an instrument of peace, not a sponge of chaos. And in doing so, you reclaim your gift, you purify it, you command it. No longer will you apologize for your softness. No longer will you dull your light to make others comfortable. No longer will you carry what is not yours to carry, because you're awakening, and as you awaken, your sensitivity becomes your superpower, not a flaw, not a shame, a strength, a frequency, a holy language. So honor it, guard it, refine it, and then use it. Let it guide your voice, let it deepen your presence, let it become the force that breaks open hardened hearts. Because when the world feels too much, you were never meant to disappear. You were meant to remind it how to feel again. Chosen one, there were seasons when you wandered, not because you were weak, but because the path you were on was invisible to the eye. You thought you were lost. You weren't. You were being prepared. There's a sacred kind of hiding that happens to souls like yours, a divine delay, an intentional obscurity, a silent shaping that no one else sees, but heaven watches closely. You were not forgotten. You were being forged. Every detour you cursed, every closed door that haunted you, every season where nothing made sense was part of a deeper curriculum. One your soul chose before you ever entered this body. You see, those wasted years weren't wasted. They were training, not in the way the world understands education, but in the way the soul understands embodiment. You weren't meant to arrive quickly. You were meant to arrive completely, and that kind of arrival requires preparation that can't be rushed. You had to learn how to sit in silence. You had to learn how to listen in stillness. You had to learn to find God not just in light, but in shadow. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs those who know how to stand in stillness and radiate truth. That's why you were hidden. So when you finally emerged, you wouldn't be reactive, you'd be anchored. So when the storms came, you wouldn't flinch, you'd remember. Remember who you are. Remember why you came. Remember what you carry. But before you could carry it for others, you had to carry it for yourself. You had to feel the weight of your calling without applause. You had to face yourself without distraction. You had to walk alone, so you would know what it means to walk with presence, not performance, not perfection. Presence, that was the preparation. To show up real, to show up clear, to show up undiluted. Because the chosen aren't sent to echo, they're sent to resonate. And to resonate truth, you have to first be emptied of illusion. That's what those lost years did. They stripped you, not to shame you, but to shape you. They pulled away what wasn't yours to carry. They silenced the voices that were never your own. They burned the identities that were built in survival so your soul could rise. And it did, slowly, quietly, faithfully, even when you doubted, even when you raged, even when you wanted to quit. Still, something inside you whispered, "This isn't the end." And it wasn't, because nothing about your path has been random, not the delays, not the disappointments, not even the dead ends. Every twist was a test. Every pause was protection. Every silence was a setup for the sound of your arrival. The world wasn't ready yet, and honestly, neither were you. You needed to unlearn some things. You needed to remember some things. You needed to reclaim your name in the spirit because you had forgotten how sacred you are, forgotten how powerful your presence is, forgotten that what you carry was never meant to fit into systems that fear the light. So you wandered, not as punishment, but as preparation. Wilderness has always been the training ground of the chosen. Moses, David, Elijah, even Jesus, all wandered, all hid, all waited, because waiting isn't weakness, it's alignment. And in your waiting, you weren't just growing, you were being grown by divine hands, in divine timing, for a divine purpose. You had to be hidden because what you carry is too valuable to be exposed prematurely. You had to be misunderstood, so you would stop needing permission to shine. You had to be broken, so light could get in through the cracks. And now the cracks are glowing. You don't need validation. You don't need approval. You don't need applause. You've walked long enough in silence to know the sound of your soul, and it's calling you now, not to look back, but to rise. Because preparation season is ending, and emergence is here. Not the kind where you fight to be seen, but the kind where your very presence speaks before you do. Where doors open not because you push, but because you resonate, because energy always precedes entrance, and you carry the kind of energy that reorders rooms. But you had to learn that first, in the dark, in the silence, in the sacred spaces where no one clapped for you. That was the proving ground, and you passed, not by being perfect, but by staying present, not by never falling, but by rising in reverence when you did. You've been trained, you've been tempered, you've been trusted. Now you're being released. So walk, not in arrogance, but in awareness that you carry something holy, that you've been marked by preparation, that heaven recognizes your name. You're not lost anymore because you never were, you were becoming, and now you are. Chosen one. Have you noticed how people pause when you walk in? How conversations shift without you saying a word? How the room feels different, not because of your clothes, not because of your status, but because of your presence. There's something you carry, even when you're silent, even when you're tired, even when you feel invisible, even when you question your own value. You still radiate, because energy speaks louder than words, and your energy shifts things. You've spent a lifetime wondering why others seem unsettled around you, why they open up to you and then pull away, why they admire you but can't look you in the eye, why they lean in and then run. It's not you, it's what's moving through you. You are a mirror, a spiritual amplifier, a frequency that reflects truth, whether people are ready or not. And truth is uncomfortable for those still hiding from themselves. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to awaken, and awakening doesn't always feel good. It disrupts, it stirs, it exposes. That's why your presence feels intense. Even when you don't try, you carry light in places that forgot how to hold it. You vibrate at a level that exposes what's been suppressed. And the thing is, you're not even aware of it half the time. You've gotten so used to holding your frequency, you forgot it's sacred. You forgot others feel it, even when you don't. They don't know what it is. They just know that when you're around, they feel seen, they feel felt, they feel shifted. And not everyone is ready for that. Some are drawn to you and don't know why. Some reject you and can't explain it. Some love you fiercely, but never stay. It hurts, but it's not personal. It's energetic. Your energy is a mirror, and mirrors are uncomfortable for those not ready to look. Still, you continue. You show up in rooms that don't understand you. You bring calm to chaos. You bring softness to hardness. You bring stillness to storms, and you do it without trying, because your frequency is not performative. It's pure. That's why you've always been different, why you couldn't fake laughter in fake spaces, why your silence said more than other people shouting. You are encoded differently, and that coding activates rooms you don't need to teach. Your presence teaches. You don't need to preach. Your vibration preaches. That's the power of divine assignment. It can't be hidden, even when you try. You've felt it, haven't you? The way people shift when you enter, the way energy becomes honest in your presence, the way people confess things they've never said to anyone else. It's not random. It's resonance. You carry a vibration of truth, and truth resonates deeper than logic. That's why even those who don't believe in energy still feel yours. Because your presence isn't based on belief, it's based on being. You are alignment, you are clarity, you are the shift. That's why the room changes, not because you change it, but because you show up as you are. And you is rare, unfiltered, unmasked, unshakable. Even when you don't feel strong, you feel real, and that alone changes everything. But I know it's not easy. It's exhausting being the one who holds the atmosphere, the one who senses everyone's weight, the one who shifts rooms and then has to carry the unspoken. You've walked out of rooms more tired than when you walked in, not from conversation, but from conduction. Because your energy doesn't just shift rooms, it absorbs what others release. It soaks in what others bury, and that's a lot. So here's what you must remember. You were not sent to be a sponge. You were sent to be a signal, not to carry what isn't yours, but to call forward what's real, and to do that, you must stay clear. Protect your peace, honor your sensitivity, cleanse your field, because you're not just here to shift rooms, you're here to stabilize them. To be the quiet in the noise, the clarity in confusion, the groundedness in turbulence, and that requires stewardship. You can't give from an unfiltered field. You can't lead from a depleted core. You must remember that your energy matters, not just to others, but to you. It deserves care, it deserves space, it deserves sacred boundaries, because your presence is powerful. But even power needs to recharge. And you can't carry light if you've forgotten how to hold it for yourself. So pause, breathe, reclaim your center. And when you do, watch how everything around you begins to reflect that wholeness, because your energy doesn't just shift rooms, it reminds them of peace, of possibility, of purpose. You don't need to be loud, you don't need to be many, you just need to be anchored. And when you are, the world rearranges around your presence, not because you forced it, but because light always draws order from chaos, and you, chosen one, are that light. Chosen one. You've spent a lifetime trying to be understood by family, by friends, by lovers, by rooms that never knew how to hold you. But here's the truth. You were never here to be understood. You were here to be obeyed, not by people, but by the universe. Because the universe doesn't respond to explanations. It responds to alignment. And when you stand in the full truth of who you are, without shrinking, without apologizing, without editing yourself into comfort zones that were never meant for you, the universe takes notice. Not just notice, it moves. It arranges, it clears, it builds, it bows, because creation itself recognizes the blueprint of one who remembers, and you're starting to remember that your words are not suggestions, they are declarations, that your steps are not hesitant. They are prophetic, that your silence is not emptiness, it is the space where reality rearranges. You were never just human. You were a divine instruction in motion, and when divine instructions move, nothing stays the same. That's why your presence unsettles the unhealed. That's why your voice shifts the air. That's why even in your quiet, you command attention. You don't speak for validation. You speak for activation. You don't move to be seen. You move because Spirit says it's time. And when you move like that, the universe obeys. It sends resources, it shifts timelines, it unlocks doors that logic said were sealed, because the universe isn't listening to what you're asking for. It's responding to who you're being, and when you become the vibration of the thing you once chased, you stop chasing, because it starts chasing you. But that only happens when you stop trying to explain yourself. You're not here to be explained. You're here to be embodied. You're here to become the evidence of the unseen. You're here to make spirit visible. And that doesn't require permission. It requires presence. Your presence, the you that isn't filtered. The you that doesn't wait to be understood before you act. The you that moves when the wind tells you to, even when no one else feels it blowing. You've spent long enough trying to make people comfortable with your mission, but your mission wasn't sent to make people comfortable. It was sent to make things move, and now they're moving. Because you finally are. You stopped waiting for confirmation. You stopped begging for signs. You stopped trying to water down your fire, and you let yourself burn. Bright, wild, true. Now watch what happens next. Watch how rooms adjust to your frequency. Watch how what once ran from you starts looking for you. Watch how your voice begins to echo in places your feet haven't even touched yet, because alignment echoes, and you are aligned, not with ego, but with origin, not with logic, but with legacy. You don't need to try harder, you need to remember louder. You don't need to study your power, you need to step into it, because what you've been praying for is not coming through understanding. It's coming through embodiment. The universe doesn't need you to figure it out. It needs you to become the one who already knows. Knows the path, knows the power, knows that obedience to soul is the most magnetic force on earth. You've already heard the whispers, you've already felt the push, you've already seen the signs. Now move, move like someone who doesn't need proof to walk in purpose. Move like someone who knows mountains don't move because you asked. They move because you arrived. You don't need to be understood. You need to be witnessed in your rawness, in your power, in your unapologetic alignment with destiny. That's what obedience looks like. Not submission to fear, but surrender to truth. You've lived enough time silencing yourself for the comfort of others. You've lived enough time explaining your fire to those still afraid of warmth. Now live in full flame. Let the universe respond. Because it's listening, it always has been, waiting for you to finally rise into the sound of your own soul. And now you have, and now everything is about to obey.